you're seeing me today in Shades in Eastbourne, which I will be exploring in more detail at some point in the future. But right at the moment, I'm having a cup of tea because today is a holiday for me. Myself and the fabulous Robbie have a friend whose hobby is cooking. He's got an amazing kitchen. And about once a year, he holds a buffet party in the afternoons and really to show off his culinary skills, which we're all very grateful for. It's good to have a friend who likes putting on parties. And as someone who used to put on buffets professionally many years ago, it's very impressive. Anyway, this means that myself and fabulous Robbie will be journeying to Seaford, which is really the landscape of my childhood. I lived in that area from the late 60s to the late 70s, roughly from Woodstock to the Sex Pistols. So it's a big part of my childhood. And in fact, whenever I go to Seaford, I expect to see everyone in 70s clothes and hear the sweep playing, because for me, Seaford will always be in the 70s. So we're going over on the bus. Now, there is some very good scenery and some interesting history, and I might talk about that. Fabulous Robbie, on our way to Seaford.
Hello.
And unlike this time a year ago, I'm wearing sensible sandals, because last year I had on these big block heel sandals and they looked wonderful. And it's a bit like Salvador Dali said about chairs. Chairs are made to be sat on the strict understanding that they're not comfortable. And like shoes are the same, you know.
You have to be comfortable with your footwear.
And well, we've learned that because you missed the bus because of me. Back, do you remember? You were quite the gentleman and quite gallant and went for a later bus because I couldn't run to the bus stop.
Yeah.
In these stupid looking, actually wonderful looking, but stupid to walk in block heel sandals that I wore. And in fact, they broke shortly afterwards. Thankfully, they broke and not my ankles.
That's good.
I'm always glad when shoes break rather than ankles, because you cannot, especially at my age, repair ankles. And I was dancing on the stage in a club, and wallop, crunch.
Oh, God.
So they ended up straight in the bin, and I am not going down the platform route again. But you're all right with platforms. You've got your platform plimsolls, Harlequin print on, which I love.
Yes.
So we are off to Seaford and off to the scenes of my childhood.
And
Guildridge Park and Guildridge House, which was the old Towner years ago. I've always liked it, but the new Towner is a big improvement. And we're climbing out of Eastbourne onto the golf course and up onto the South Downs, where there should
which is, when you look behind and see the view, it's amazing.
It is. It's quite something.
We'll have to take a video of that.
We will. We'll try to. If our electricity holds. So we're off to Seaford, and this is actually quite a nice bit of Eastbourne. My bit of Eastbourne's a nice bit as well, but it's quite pleasant. And we're going past the old Tally Ho in a bit, which is now a steakhouse. It's no longer the Tally Ho.
That's quite an old pub, isn't it?
30s, but it's nice. It's nice. It's a real 30s roadhouse. Sorry, go on.
That church which is...
Oh, that is very medieval. That's God knows, that's been there sort of 1100 at least.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, there's quite a lot of old things in Eastbourne.
Including me. I've been...
Not old.
I remember it. Oh, God. Early 70s, but I've kind of been part of the scene here since my early 20s. There aren't many left from that era. There's a few. Little Mark's been around longer than me.
I've been in Eastbourne since 2008.
Oh, 9 years. A decade.
Yeah.
A decade.
Quite a few years.
See you now then.
The next stop. The Eastbourne Carnival yesterday, because everybody let me down.
Oh, that's a shame.
And I wasn't going to go on my own.
Oh.
And it was a shame that there was nobody else doing anything for it.
Things like that, when you're on your own, they're not so good. Not so good.
I look really good on video, don't I?
Well, I think so. I think you're what we need. Eastbourne, well, the coast. When I talk about the coast, I mean basically from Chichester all the way through to Portsmouth. Has some very good artistic and cultural life. A lot of stuff people don't know about. A lot of older people doing things, and it's good. But on more the kind of clubby side and different side. It's gone downhill a lot in the last 8 or 9 years.
Everywhere's going downhill.
This is
London, up north. It's not as good as it used to be. I remember that when I was 19, I lived at Carlisle at the time. There was a small, good club in there. When I moved down into the Midlands, Leicester, that's gone downhill. We had a big scene when I was moved there, but it's gone downhill now. Everywhere's going downhill.
Well, except us, we're going uphill onto the South Downs through the old Summerdown camp, where 100 years ago they used to treat people injured from the First World War. This was like a recuperation centre, and quite interesting history to that. But no, everywhere does seem to have got a bit kind of dull. I mean, you're talking about Carlisle. Courtney, what's the great Courtney Fables grew up around Carlisle, and I said I went there several times as a child, and it was always raining, and she said yes, it always does rain in Carlisle.
Remember, twice Carlisle's had the major floods.
Have they? Indeed, it proves it is always raining in Carlisle. So we can see out the window there. That is the South Downs and the famous golf course, which is a big part of Eastbourne life. But not for us, we're not golf club people.
You can actually see Eastbourne.
Oh yes, you can. You can see the town, look. You can see the town itself. But the golf course was haunted by one of our more dubious local celebrities, Richard Stoker, the notorious flasher. Eastbourne does have a history of what might be called...
I never knew there was a flasher in Eastbourne.
Oh, we are famous for extreme flashing. We had 2 very bad ones. We had Richard Stonefer and a man known as the Polegate Nudist, who was never actually apprehended, although the police were looking for him for about 16 years. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories about the Polegate Nudist case. But no, Richard Stonefer actually made the papers as far away as the United States for being the most extreme flasher, because he didn't just expose himself, he actually took off all his clothes in public and wandered about.
Did he wear a mask?
Yes, he did, but not when he was flashing. He had a 1970s flasher Mac, and someone said to me, where on earth did he find a 1970s brown flasher Mac? It was like the badge of the flasher, you know? But he was extreme. He actually got jailed for walking through Tesco's naked at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
And how long did he get in
I
jail?
can't remember, it was quite a time. And I mean, that is not normal flashing. I mean,
No.
We do get these extreme types. I think it's being at the southern part of the country. A lot of people think, oh, where can I go? Oh, the South Coast. And I mean, I was born here, but it does make the South Coast interesting.
I can imagine people flashing in Brighton at
The lanes, yeah. Oh, not the lanes, no, that would be, yeah, a Duke's
But I
Mount.
can't imagine in the lanes.
No. Especially
Maybe
if
at the chocolate place.
we used to have our own Shocky Wocky Doodah, an Eastbourne branch, but they closed it. Anyway, it would be very bad because the North Lanes was once a nunnery, so I think that would be very, very inappropriate. No, the Lanes proper was once a nunnery. And of course that part of Brighton was burnt down by the French at one time. The French burnt down quite a lot of places around here. Rye. In the north, of course, the Scots used to burn places down when we didn't go and burn places down there. And it was the same here with France at one time. Not always a very happy relationship across the channel. Now this is East Dean, and the artist Grayson Perry lived here recently in the early 2000s. It is fantastic. They have indeed, one of which I think was Grayson Perry's, and he did in fact donate rather good artwork to the Towner in Eastbourne. I've actually did once belong to the same internet forum as Grayson Perry, but I never actually spoke to him. I remember I used to go to Sunday Cabaret years ago at a place here, and it was odd. It was Cabaret and Bingo, which is a very British concept. Wonderful days, very, very, very good event. And there was this fella in there who looked a lot like Grayson Perry. I don't mean in the Clare drag, I mean Grayson Perry as Grayson Perry. And yeah, I don't think I've ever heard of him. What, Grayson Perry? He's an art potter. But eventually one of my...
So he made pots?
Yeah, of an artistic, fine art character. And one of my friends in the end said, look, let's ask him, is he Grayson Perry? And I was 50% sure that he might be Grayson Perry, but no, he was some bloke who worked in a cafe, which is kind of appropriate in Eastbourne as the town of 1,000 cafes, but it might have been interesting if he was Grayson Perry. But there you go, that's life really. This is getting towards the landscape of my childhood. I used to go mushroom picking with my late father in the fields over here in the 1970s in the early mornings, and it's quite something to see. And sheep, of course, the foundation of Sussex and in fact much of England is sheep. So yeah, this is the landscape I grew up in, which is it's home. It means a lot to me.
The area that we're heading to next, Seven Sisters, is lovely.
Oh god, yeah, but it's nationally famous.
Yeah, I've got a funny feeling June's going to be quite busy for me.
Well, that's good. That is good.
The next stop is
I can't believe I'm going to be probably going to Pioneer Studios again.
Ah, well, I want you to be. Marionetti said that he wanted to be the caffeine of Europe, and I'd like you to be the caffeine of the South Coast. I think we need it, as I was saying. We need to fill it because.
Well, I do my best every time to go out.
You do,
I don't know
you do, and it's an effort. Well, I don't often feel like going out, to be honest. I'm often like, not out. But at the moment, I'm feeling.
I can deal with the public like this.
Yeah.
But doing the public as myself is not an easy task.
No.
Oh, look at that.
No. This is the South Downs people are kind of think of as the South Downs, and
Look at all those little sheep.
It is
reminds
indeed.
me of cotton wool.
It does. I mean, that's actually how the notorious local smuggling started, with export smuggling of wool. Wool had to go out through certain ports that were controlled by the government, and it was heavily taxed. So they used to go owling out at night with the owls and exporting wool, and then they started bringing stuff in, and smuggling became a big part of Sussex life. In fact, when we get over the hill to the bottom there, that's where they used to smuggle illegal immigrants in when I was a kid in the 70s. They used to land them in fishing boats off the coast. We have what used to be Golden Galleon, I don't know what it's called now.
It tells you on the bus.
Oh, they'll tell us in a minute.
There's a bus stop.
This is also where, in 1940, the Germans were planning to land their assault pioneers. This bit on the bottom here was where they were going to storm ashore with flamethrowers and seize the coast. And you can still see the marks of the old defences around here. It gets into all the geography textbooks. It's such an unusual place.
Yes.
I believe there was brandy smuggling here between the wars as well. But obviously smuggling then wasn't what it had been in the 17th and 18th centuries. It's not as violent or as dangerous, and nothing like as widespread. And of course, over on our right is Friston Forest, and this little bit at the bottom of Friston Forest was very famous for dogging. In the early 2000s, the little car park here was a particularly famous dogging area, and was listed on some of the early internet sites like Dogging in Sussex. It was quite the place, but apparently dogging, like so much else, has gone into decline.
There was one time I completely painted myself all white with red eyes, and I went to Brighton, and I was waiting for my friend Hank, because I wanted to cheer him up, and all of a sudden this woman stood next to me, and she said, "Oh, you're as white as a sheet. I think you need to go out in the sun more." And I said, "Oh, I'm just in it." I said to her, "I'm just an imaginary figment of your mind. I'm not really here."
And she's still in treatment, yeah.
Yeah, and she was like, she pinched me. I didn't go out or anything. I just pretended I wasn't there. She was like, "Oh," I gave her a fright.
So if she's out there, no, Robbie was not a being from another dimension, or one of the famous Sussex fairies, because we're famous for our fairies, and they're not like Disney fairies. They can be quite sinister.
Yeah.
And yeah, they do. Like the gypsum light fairies, we might talk about them sometime, but they're North Sussex, they're in there.
The next stop is Cookmere Inn.
He took this man I met on Seaford side, who I'm talking about, I used to know through the club scene. And he was talking about adult parties that he'd been to in North Sussex inland, and they sounded like something out of the Arabian Nights. They sounded wonderful. And then I asked him about them. He said, "Oh no, they ended 12 years ago because we lost the venue." They never find anybody, or it's always they're in the past or it's someone else's party. And all the ones I went to were crap. It must be me. I must jinx adult parties. It's like invite Julia and they're terrible.
I've had one or two where they didn't work. That was years and years ago. But recently, I've had one or two where it's like, oh, I'm in my element.
Well, I mean, I have a friend and she's a real sex person and has done some way out stuff.
Yeah.
But she's never been to one, and she said the two concepts don't go so well together. Sex and party and sex. It doesn't. They don't blend. She was a big believer in not having them. She thought them unsuitable.
Yeah.
Because she said the chemistry's never right at a party. You can never all be in that state of mind. I do remember being in a club once where they used very, very unsuitable background music. It was a big flagellation scene, and someone played the Nolan Sisters. I'm in the mood for dancing.
That's one of my favourite songs.
In the middle of a flogging, and it really it's not. It was almost a David Lynch moment, you know. It didn't really belong, but that's the kind of thing that goes on if you go to parties and clubs. It's not. Not
yeah,
what you
club
imagine.
music.
I think that's a better choice.
Club music.
I know.
You get high and
In that mood. I mean, I had a friend who used to do fetish parties, and he used to use ambient. He used to think ambient was and I think he was right, because a lot of people with fetish themes use Gregorian chants, which is perhaps a little bit blasphemous, but they do seem to go well. Yes, so that's me and sex parties. I'm giving them up. Parties in Seaford, the one we're going to today. That's a nice party. It's a buffet party, and that's what kind of thing I like today. But some years ago, when I was sleazier, I went to a particularly bad adult party in Seaford. I mean, I've never been to a really good adult party. They're all pretty dreary. I mean, people who've never been to them imagine that, oh, I'm missing out on this, or whatever. Look, you're much
The next
better off.
stop is Romney Close.
You are much better off staying at home and watching Inspector Barnaby on the telly. It's much more exciting than going to a sex party. Sex parties, on the whole, are dreadful.
I've been to quite a few good ones.
Really?
The next stop
Especially at
is
the,
Chington
the
Gardens.
Really?
After 11 o'clock at night.
I only ever go to crap once. I mean,
I've been to a few house parties which turned out really high, very high and sleazy. Very good.
ones I always go to are tedious. Well, went to when I still did things like
I've
that.
never been to a sex party at
I've
all.
never been to a good one. And they had rubbish food, if there's food at all, and nobody's remotely sexy, and it's always awful and dreary, and I wished I'd watched Columbo instead. You know, mine were always dreary, and I think it's just as well I've given them.
The next stop is Chington
That was
Gardens.
some years ago.
One of the good ones was last year. That was at home, yeah.
Well, Esmeralda always used to say, oh, I went to a fabulous one, and then I'd say, when? She'd say, 1972 or something like that. No, they do still happen there.
Yes.
Oh no, the ones I've gone to always crap.
It's costly.
Oh,
But
no,
they're fun, I've enjoyed.
not in my experience, but it's probably just me. I probably just jinx sex parties.